felt a desire to share a bit about, yeah, my journey in the past few years. And also, this is a way for me to just integrate and to allow deeper integration to come through of experiences that come with their own biases and their own judgments and their own convictions, and something in the speaking of them and just allowing the body and the mind to coexist together and to communicate and to just channel allows me to, yeah, integrate. There are a few texts that are really deep allies to me at this moment in my journey. And something that I've noticed for myself, since I was very young, there is this interesting pattern that happens that as I move through something, I will feel deeply alone in it. And almost immediately after I have a insight or a deeper contemplation or a question occur from the experience, it will almost be echoed and mirrored back to me in real time through a text or through literature or through someone else's conversation. And it's really beautiful because what I have come to understand is that in those moments that I feel deeply abandoned by life or alone in a process or an experience, there is a softer surrendering to the moment, not with the expectation or agenda that an insight will come, but a faith and a trust that I don't need to know in that moment, and that if I needed to know, that I would know, and that my unknowing and my dissolution also has its purpose. And so there is a deeper ability to surrender to what I generally want to fight, what I want to push against. So this year I'm in an experience called 1 Year to Live, which is inspired by the book by Stephen Levine, A Year to Live. And in this contemplation, I'm also in another death doula training. So here is my death and doula training guide with Sacred Circle. And I have decided to start a journal that is simply on thoughts of death. So everything in here is contemplations of mortality and my existential nature, my dreams, the patterns that are revealed to me, the insights that I have around my beliefs, my worldview, my ancestry, my conflicts, my inner conflicts around what it means to be alive, what it means to die. And another text that I'm sitting with deeply, I don't know if I have it here. No, it's Dark Night of the Soul, and it's a modern translation by modern saints, and it is profound. It's profound to be finding this text and to be reading it a year after I've come out of one of my deepest dark nights. And it speaks to spiritual sobriety at some point on the path when you are walking deeply in order to know yourself and to humble yourself, and to also deeply be mirrored back your imperfections and the places where you have lacked accountability and virtue and integrity. It speaks about in this dark night that we experience somewhat of a spiritual sobriety, a dryness of the senses. And this word dryness, it hit me so deeply when I read this recently. And if I had have read it in the throes of my dark night, I think that I would have projected my experience into the text. And I think it's important that I moved through the dryness of my dark night without text, without assistance, without hope and faith, because that was the whole point of it. The point was to deeply meet my fear of abandonment and my insecurity and my fear of mortality, and to completely just be enraptured by it. And something that came through in the second year of my dark night of the soul, which has been about 2 years and is still trailing. I'm still in the tail of it, and I don't know, I don't really know where I'm at in it, but it feels as if I'm coming up for a breath of fresh air, and the senses are more amplified, and I feel grateful. Like there's just such a deep gratitude on the other side for breath and for life and for the morning coming and the evening coming and for just love, any love, like any amount of love. This part of me that wanted love to look a certain way, and it needed to come through exactly as this way, and this way of communication, and this way of reciprocity, although the ego still strains for a certain picture. There's a deeper surrender to fuck, like this is enough, breath, life, like all of it, the challenge, like it's all enough. It's more than enough. It is enough. And in that spiritual sobriety, in the dryness of the night, I remember just the timelessness of the dark night. And had I leaned into it and surrendered to the lack of pleasure in my senses, I would have seen things a bit differently than I did, because my ego was attached so deeply to comfort. So much fear came up in the timelessness. It was almost as if I would wake up and all I wanted was for night to come again so I could go to sleep. And my dreams seemed to be the one place that I found solace. And so I slept. I remember some days I was sleeping 12 hours a day, just exhausted energetically, and waking into this timeless place with my ego in deep uncertainty and fear, so much fear that I never knew I had, fear about everything, and deep fear of my mortality, deep fear of my existential nature, and a complexity of like looking out at the world and seeing everyone and thinking, wow, all of these people are they're existential. They all have been born and they will all die. Do they know that? Do they really know that? Like this kind of like insanity of what are we all doing here? Like, how did we get here? And as the senses came back online, such gratitude to come out of my victim mindset of like, oh, this bad thing is happening to me. I feel so cursed. Because at some point within the dark night, as I met this dark wall of fog that was always with me, as I explained to one of my hypnotists, that I was saying there's always this dark wall of fog with me. And it was bringing up so much fear. And at some point in the hypnosis, I was in the void. I was in this dark space and my fear was coming up and I felt so much uncertainty and so much anxiety. And I started to laugh, and it was almost as if life was right there saying, you've been praying for this your whole life. You've been walking the path. You've been praying for emptiness. And now you're calling it death. And you're so afraid. And that was a huge moment of revelation for me of, oh my gosh. This is it, the emptiness that I've been looking for in meditation and yoga, emptying myself, emptying myself of pleasure and agenda and expectation. And here it is, life has emptied me in this dark night. It's emptied me of pleasure. It's emptied me of my sensory overwhelm. And here I am in this darkness, in the stillness. I remember I wasn't even listening to music anymore at this point in the dark night, and music is my medicine, dance is my addiction at times, and I wasn't listening to music. I was just in stillness. I was just being in a way I'd never been before. And I just laughed to myself of like, oh my gosh, in my naiveness, in my misunderstanding, I have projected onto this emptiness death and uncertainty and fear. And it's been a gift the whole time. It's been a gift. And so I just slowed down and just breathed in deeply and just like let myself lose my sanity, in a sense, to lose my mind, to become mindless instead of mindful. And I notice as the senses come back and as pleasure comes back, and I heard a quote yesterday that I really loved, and it said, when you don't know the path that you are walking, distractions will look like opportunities. And it was a beautiful reminder to know with whom I'm working, to really, in my prayers and in my conversation before dreaming and before meditating, it's like, who am I connected to? Like, where are the messages coming from? And making sure that I am connected to the deepest truth and the deepest love that I know, the divinity that is the higher good in my own experience of life. And to make sure that I'm not moving in these tangential ways, being seduced by the magic and the mystery of the human experience, because there is so much magic and so much mystery. But to really ask myself, with whom am I working, and with whom is working through me, with who is working through me. And I don't know. I know nothing. I know nothing. But what I do know is that there's a deeper settled nature in the center of my being. And there's a deeper softness and a tenderness and a deeper opening to really contemplating, the difficult questions. And a big one that I'm sitting with is unconditional love. Like, there's so many reasons for me to get frustrated with the way that the world loves. And I find my old selves and still parts of the self that aren't fully integrated, that seek justice in love, that desire love to look a certain way, for it to be somewhat reciprocal, to let it be somewhat mirrored. And I had these words come to me in a dream the other night, and it was, if life isn't fair, why would love be fair? And I thought, life is not fair when we talk about having a safe life. Life is not safe. We die at the end of this experience. Like, that's not fair. That's not just. And it is, we're part of the cycle, the nature, the natural cycle. And it's in our decay and decomposition and returning to the cycle that we're included, that we belong. It's actually a blessing to be included and to be a part of. But this came to me and if life isn't fair, why would love be fair? In this part of me that gets caught up sometimes in how I love and how deeply I love, and how there is a yearning for little ones within me to be mirrored and reciprocated in a certain way that they haven't been in this life, and this deep yearning for a human love that is so pure and so reverent and so devoted to a higher good, that sometimes it's hard for me to just be with the imperfection of what is. And the goal, isn't about being loved. It really does feel the objective is to learn to love, to truly love. And the world isn't even ready to be fully received in love, sadly. So many wear so many armors and guards to that. But if I can continue to love in the most unconditional way that I know how, and just continue to give and pour into the cups that will receive, life pours back into me. Sometimes it's not through human love, but it's through the birds chirping. It's through the homes that I find myself in, the communities that invite me in, the music that swoons me, and the rhythms that, bring my body into motion. I am so loved. And the breath pierces me every day through the inhalation and the exhalation of God or the divine or source, penetrating me with life and still choosing me today to live. And so that is the ultimate love. How could that not be the biggest love ever? And how is that not enough? It's so enough. It's so enough. So death is bringing me so much closer to life in a way that I never imagined, and it is tearing me apart. I am tearing me apart and putting myself back together, and I feel so grateful to be on this weird, wild journey.